This program calculates the user's body mass index based on their height in meters and weight in kilograms. It uses the standard BMI formula, which is weight divided by height squared, or in this case, height times height. Once the BMI is calculated, the program determines which health category the value falls under, such as underweight, normal weight, etc. And along with the category, it provides a short message describing the potential health risks associated with that range. The file is titled Paul's Unit 2 Assignment, IPO Model, and Code Readability. Alright, so let's begin with the overall look and readability of my code. You'll notice that just after the main method is introduced, that each line will now have exactly 4 spaces for the indent. And you'll also notice a bunch of white space used. This is just to ensure that there's empty lines and empty spaces in between the codes, so that, for example, here, this similar chunk of code has similar functions, so I decided to keep them together. So you'll notice here, obviously, with the public class being main to represent the file name main.java. So let's begin with these first 2 lines here. You'll see this is an output string, as it requests the user to input their value for their height in meters. Specifically, you'll notice that it will be 1.75, for example, or 1.68. So if I were to run it, it's going to ask me, enter your height in meters, example 1.75, and don't forget the decimal. So if I were to do 1.68, there. So what just happened is now this value, the user, end user, putting in 1.68, it's going to go into this variable right here, height. So double here is going to enable the number for someone to put in to be a decimal and not just an integer, for example. Next, the similar line over here, it's going to use another output string. It's going to prompt the user to input their weight in kilograms. So now it's also going to use the double feature again, so that the number put in could also be a decimal number, just in case it's not an integer. For example, like 56.4. And it will now be stored in this variable weight. So if I were to put 56, this value right here is going to be in this variable, this external variable weight. So these two here, the height and the weight, are both going to be our external variables, as it's going to be using user input. So now to begin with the first process of the code, once the user has inputted all the values, the program will then begin to divide the weight by the height multiplied by itself. So the variable BMI will then have a calculated value, and this will be done internally. And then again, in case the BMI is not an exact integer, it's going to be a decimal with this. So a little bit further down, we'll see these 2 output statements. So this is going to be the first. This is going to be the output. What's going to output to the user? It's going to display the calculated BMI results to the user. This uses the formatted printing, so it's going to be printf, as you can see, and it's going to show the BMI values recorded and rounded to a 1 decimal place using this right here. This is just to ensure precision for the code, and you'll notice the /n. This is just to create new lines, so it looks a bit cleaner. And this will then output the BMI category and health risk information by calling on to the helper method right over here. So now that the scanner is closed, we will now have the last chunk of code, which is the last process of the system. So it contains the get BMI category once again as a helper method and a helper function. So that takes the BMI value as a parameter and uses conditional logic statements. So like the if, else if, or the if statements to determine which health category the BMI falls under based on the ranges here. So it processes the BMI input by comparing against 4 different ranges. So like the underweight, normal weight, overweight, obese, etc. And it will return an appropriate string message along with it. So like it's going to show this health message showing the health risk information. So now if I were to press run, it's going to ask me for my height. So let's do 1.89 for example. And let's do 62 kg. So it's going to tell me I'm underweight with a BMI of 17.4. And I have an increased risk of developing heart problems such as osteoporosis, anemia, and fatigue. Alright, so thank you for watching. and listening.